Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. I'm now being joined by Bishop Amakiri, the National Chairman of the YPP, and the National Secretary of the SDP, Mr. Shehu Gabam. Both of them will be weighing in on this new introduction INEC is bringing into our elections. You heard earlier what the INEC National Commission has said to us about when this Bimodal accreditation process will begin next weekend when INEC conducts a State House of Assembly by-election. And of course, INEC has also said that it will use this process in Anambra State for the governorship election, and is also a way to phase out what is popularly called the card reader machine. Let me go to Abuja studio now. And let me begin with you, Mr. Gabam. How does this come to you? I know INEC met with politicians and political leaders. This new introduction, is it for you a welcome idea? Because politicians are generally going to be in the mix of all of this.
Well, first and foremost, I think the INEC are doing extremely very well. And this is what you get if you have the right leadership that have the listening ears, leadership that are willing to consult, listen to other very valid, important opinions, particularly the field players, the politicians, the political actors, making their input in shaping whatever they are going to do. Now, the INEC of today is INEC that is very creative, very innovative, and have the capacity to agree and change their shortfalls. We saw the presentation. We were all there at the INEC, where parties were invited. It was clearly demonstrated how the technology is going to function and how easy it can be, and to rectify some of the excesses, some of the issues that create confidence around the polling centers, or the voters' right, the franchise of an individual, or the vote of an individual to be counted. The demonstration was quite satisfactory, and it gave us the confidence that some of these issues that raise a lot of concern about illegal voting or rigging or vote buying are likely to be a history very soon. The chairman have demonstrated a lot of capacity to change the status quo. A lot of development have come on board, a lot of technology have come on board, and of course, we the politicians, once we see that there's a very clear, good leadership, there's a great vision, we have to key in and support it. The country belongs to all of us. It is in our own overall interest as a nation, as citizens, as voters, to make sure we have a credible election. I always said that June 12th, presidential election during the military regime was the best the country has ever recorded. But given the presentation of INEC yesterday, I'm beginning to get convinced that there's likelihood that 2023 we are likely to have free and fair election if everything goes the way it was presented.
Mr. Amakiri, give us a sense of what you make of this new creation, this new introduction in Ondo and in Edo State. We saw what INEC did with a Z-pad. Your party will be part of the election in Anambra State. With this introduction and the introduction of Z-pad, the transmission of results into a portal, how far do you think this will go?
Thank you very much, Sean. Let me also support my brother here by thanking INEC. Technologically wise, I think INEC has actually made a tremendous, progress in terms of bringing innovation to bear. But my area of concern, my brother Sean, at the moment is the human factor. And the human factor has to do with we politicians. The truth of the matter is that there are a lot of us who actually, let me give you an example. Yesterday, while we were seated, INEC invited all of us for a meeting I will call a money-based driven meeting. What I mean by money, matter of national importance. And while we were gathered there, the chairman of the APC, let me just put it that way, the chairman of APC and his secretary all they left the place even before the presentation began. So what that tells you is that, when people already have settled on what they feel gives them the best way of their option. This kind of innovation to them doesn't matter. So my area of concern, Shengo, on this particular matter is, we the politicians, are we really going to comply? Are we really going to, contribute our quota? Are we going to do what we are supposed to do in ensuring that our country move forward and other countries also emulate us? That is actually one question, one pertinent question begging for an answer. The politicians will abuse this process.
Just a moment.
I can assure you that.
You must have thought about, something must have prompted the thinking that politicians may not allow this to work. Why do you think that politicians may resist this?
Yeah, because the politicians are the ones, some, not all anyway, because I don't belong to that category of politicians. But over time, we have had people in this country who have said they have influenced several times in election manipulation, rigging, electoral fraud, just to cap it. And what I mean is that when politicians have their way, they will continue to influence, manipulations. And this is part, very innovative idea. And of course, every country is actually vulnerable to hacking or whatever, and it's when people go to a kind of try to influence this kind of thing, it will actually, frustrate the effort that this INEC is bringing on board. So my area of concern at the moment is, while we are dealing with innovation, while we are dealing with technology, what kind of punitive measures are we also going to provide in terms of people who violate some of these? Because, my brother, this is part, politicians can aid people who will actually go to that particular place and make sure they hack it or gag the operation of that zipper. So it's all about, actually attitude now. And this attitude, frankly speaking, is one thing we must, dissipate our energy, bring our time, and see how we can orientate our people in terms of the kind of sanctity we want to bring into our electioneering process.
Let me bring back,
my major area of concern.
Yeah. Your major,
Hello?
So please land on that thought. Land on that thought. I wanted to come to Mr. Gabam, but land on that thought.
Yeah, my major area of concern, Mr. Shengu, is we the politicians, especially those who continue to think that without manipulation, they cannot win election. And it is beginning to get done of many of them. They know, and that's why many of them are afraid that we shouldn't go to this, we shouldn't get into the new era of technology that is providing to us an easy way of how we can get into our election without no much violence, people not dying, no snatching of ballot boxes. These are issues, these are innovations that are going to settle that kind of shenanigan.
All right.
So the brigade
Mr. Gabam,
is surrounding.
Mr. Gabam, what are your own fears? Do you agree with some of the things that Mr. Amakiri just said? How manipulative can politicians be in the process of using technology to advance our electoral process?
Well, first, technology is not a perfect machine. You expect some errors here and there, either man-made or deliberate act of default from the machine itself. Secondly, let me say this. In any election that is characterized by rigging or toggery, and so on and so forth, there are four components of it. One, the INEC itself. If this current INEC led by Professor Mahmoud want to leave a legacy behind, they will ensure that the electoral process from the polling unit will not be compromised at all. Number two, the political actors, the political players will ensure that due process, adherence to the due process, respect for voting process is being complied with. Number three, the security agencies that are deployed to do the job, to do service for their own country, to ensure that the process was adhered to, there is no abuse of the process. Once this is being complied with, and then the ruling party themselves, if they are committed to free and fair election that can be adjudged to be free and fair internationally and within the country, and will create confidence in governance and on those that were elected, you will find out that these things are out. It is we, the politicians, the security agencies, and the INEC that collude in ensuring that proper elections were not being conducted. But once we appreciate the fact that we need to have a solid structure, we need to have an election that defines due process, that defines a system that can be classified as not first class, but close to a perfect system that is being respected all over the world. I think some of these devices that have negatively affected our past election will do away with. But it all depends on the president and commander-in-chief who is going to deploy troops at the polling unit. And that is why sometimes I find it very disturbing when people say INEC are independent. INEC have their limitations. For instance, INEC do not generate, service system when people are talking about transmission of results. INEC do not control the security agencies. It is the president that deployed the security agencies all over the place. And of course, INEC doesn't control the behavior of politicians, even though they have the power to regulate the behavior of political class. But in the absence of deterrence, this thing will continue to happen. But as citizens, if we are committed to have free and fair election, we will have free and fair election in Nigeria. We are not animals, we are human beings. And we cherish developed societies where you see transparency of elections, good conduct during the elections. We all cherish it. And therefore, I believe INEC can bring a lot of bodies together, especially National Orientation Agency, to ensure that every citizen is properly being sensitized. INEC need to bring a lot of bodies that can help them to perform the job of sensitization, to perform the job of reaching out to every Nigerian, because they don't have the structure, they don't have the spread nationwide to reach out to every Nigerian. But there are agencies of government, like National Accreditation, that can be brought on board to do such things, and make sure that an average Nigerian is being said, this is a new machine, this is a new system. So every Nigerian have a responsibility to educate a fellow Nigerian on his franchise, how to exercise his own franchise. A technology that has not been properly disseminated, that have saturated every local corner of the country, people will find it very difficult to comply with. Even the voters, the ballot paper, people are finding it difficult really to identify this. So it's something that we need the whole country together to work it out and ensure that we have a credible election.
All right, let's wrap up now. And let me allow Mr. Amakiri to give us a final shot here. For those who think that technology-driven accreditation process needs to be backed with technology-driven voting process, do you agree? Should we go the whole hog, considering when America itself says, look, there are issues of hacking into their system? We also have about 40 seconds left. What's your thought on that?
Shall I support any ideology, a progressive ideology of the 21st century that will bring about sanity into our electoral process. And I think this INEC, like we said before, and I'll continue to say, they are committed in bringing innovation, to clean the system for us. But I still maintain my stand that the political will to ensure that we get to El Dorado lies on the politicians who make the decision. And that's why today I think that I will use this opportunity to appeal to Mr. President, the father of the country, who have said he wants to come and ensure he leave a legacy behind. I think this is the greatest legacy for him that is going to leave behind. I think he has with political will, he can give a marching order to INEC and other security, just like my brother said here, that for the first time, I think, even I heard my brother saying one of the best elections we had was June 12th, right? June 12, 19... yes, June 12th, yeah. So we can do more than what we had at that time, because we have gotten to it. At that time, we have not grown to this level of technology.
All right.
Okay. So I tell you, Sean, we can do it. We can do it. We can
Bishop
stop
Amakiri.
political brigandage. And I think that at this end, let me end my point by saying that, God willing, some of us in our lifetime, we are not going to allow any electoral fraud to take our destiny from us. It's not going to be possible.
Bishop Amakiri, the national chairman of the YPP, and Alhaji Shehu Gabam, the national secretary of the SDP. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your thought tonight, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. But as I will leave it tonight, many thanks everyone for watching. I'm Shehu Akimale. Bye for now.